Hello YouTube, hello fight fans, and hello to my MMA hipsters. How's everyone going? I'm actually back from my trip, so I'll be pumping out some content throughout this week, leading up to UFC 234, I believe, and that one is gonna be in Australia. Whittaker versus Gastelum, and the co-main event is Israel Adesanya versus the Spider. Now, before we get excited about that one, let's recap some of the fights that occurred during the weekend. This was a UFC Fight Night 144, headlined by Marlon Moraes up against Raphael Assuncao. Now, this event had lots and lots of finishes. We'll be talking about a few of the relevant fights on this card. And without further ado, let's get right into it. First fight to talk about, it's going to be the highly touted Nurmagomedov and the up-and-coming prospect from Brazil, Richardo Ramos, who you might remember from that massive spinning back elbow finish on Ayman Zahabi, the brother of Faraz Zahabi. And Nurmagomedov, despite having the same name as Khabib, Nurmagomedov is not actually related to him, and in his last fight defeated Justin Scoggins by unanimous decision. So yeah, two quite respectable talents going at it. And the fight didn't actually last very long. Not much to talk about in terms of the setup. Nurmagomedov landed a spinning back kick to the body as Richardo Ramos really just stood in front of him. And the way to counter a spinning back kick is to move slightly offline at an angle or move forward to crowd the space. But Richardo Ramos did not do either of those things. So he took the full force of that spinning back kick straight to the sternum. That was actually the second spinning back kick that landed on the night. So that really hurt him. And Nurmagomedov followed up by a head kick and just swamped on him to finish the fight. So quite an impressive kicking game from Nurmagomedov, who advances to 13-1, whilst Richardo Ramos falls to 12-2. Right, next fight to talk about. Johnny Walker up against Justin Ledet. Johnny Walker, what do you say about him? This guy, he's got charisma. He's the dude's walking out into the octagon, dancing like he's going to a club. But you can see, he's having fun. He really enjoys it in there, and with the performances he put on, his last fight and plus this fight, he's really showcasing himself as an entertaining guy with skills to back it up. Justin Ledet came into this fight on a 9-1 record, so he himself is no walk in the park. So now the fight. This is a very quick one, so actually it was 15 seconds, I believe. Basically what happened was Johnny Walker attempted a front leg hook kick. He then caught Justin Ledet as he was coming forward to take advantage of the blocked hook kick with a well-timed spinning back fist. Justin Ledet was trying to do the right thing. The correct way to counter a spinning opponent is to rush towards the opponent either during the spin or after the spin in order to catch the opponent with his back turned. But here's the thing though, you'd have to expect your opponent to be throwing a spinning attack, either the spinning back elbow or in this case a spinning back fist, as it is basically their only defense towards a opponent rushing towards their back. So yeah, Walker drops Ledet with a spinning back fist and then proceeds to attempt to soccer kick him, which fortunately he missed. The referee actually allowed him to go on, which was good refereeing in my opinion. But had the kick connected, it would have been a different story. He would have Johnny Walker would have been disqualified, and that would have been a real shame. So ground and pound to finish the fight, and that post-fight celebration, god damn, that is a what would you call that? He's obviously an athletic guy. Backflips, body rolls across the cage. Pretty excited to see what he's gonna do in his next fight. The dude's definitely got my attention. Charles Oliveira versus David Teymur. Now this was a good fight, despite the eye pokes obviously, but this was a good fight between both guys coming off good win streaks. Charles Oliveira coming off a 4-fight win streak, whilst David Teymur is coming off a 5-fight win streak. Charles Oliveira, of course, is known to be a submission specialist. He's got a whole variety of submission finishes. He's got rear naked chokes, he's got darces, knee bars, calf slices, and also that really famous modified Peruvian necktie that he uses. In the traditional Peruvian necktie, one would use a harness grip on the head and arm, whereas Charles Oliveira would thread his arm through and grips the biceps of his opposite arm, basically the same grip as what you'd set up for a darce. And that modified choke is just so tight. That works really, really well when you have long arms like Charles Oliveira. David Teymur, on the other hand, has very good kicks, having coming from a kickboxing background. So the fight. Start of this fight, both gentlemen comes out in open stance engagement. Charles Oliveira looked to circle away from Teymur's rear leg, which would deliver powerful kicks to the open side. And not long into the first round, there was the first eye poke, which occurred as David Teymur tried to re-establish distance. In slow motion, that eye poke looked really, really bad. Actually, it was bad enough for the referee to deduct a point from David Teymur, which I thought was actually quite harsh, given guys like John Jones have done the same eye poke multiple times without any point deduction. But that could be due to the fact that they are really going to be cutting down on the eye pokes. And as the referee said, that eye poke is going to affect the outcome of the fight. So, fair play. And immediately after the referee tells them to fight again, there was another eye poke. Charles Oliveira then calls timeout himself. And all you can hear in the commentary box is Michael Bisping saying how Charles Oliveira cannot call his own timeouts, which he is right to say. Can't really call your own timeouts. Although he did just get poked in the eye twice, which is highly discomforting stuff. So after that's over, the fight continues. Still in round 1, Teymur drops Oliveira with a beautiful left hand straight down the middle, as he catches Oliveira coming in with a attempted low kick. Teymur follows Oliveira to the ground, plays around in the guard for a little bit, and lets him back up. Round 2 is where the finish came. Actually, throughout this fight, Charles Oliveira was taking control of the center line, throwing out front kicks, right straights, constantly posting on the head of David Teymur with his left hand as he retreated, as he went forward, taking advantage of his own range advantage. By being the guy with the longer reach and constantly posting on the head of David Teymur with his left hand, he is in essence occupying the space where Teymur's straight attacks would travel through, therefore forcing David Teymur to reach for Charles Oliveira with looping strikes. And if you go back and watch that fight, that's really what happened. And that beautiful shifting upward elbow was exactly the byproduct of programming David Teymur to throw looping strikes, as that move would not have worked if Teymur was throwing straight. That shifting upward elbow really hurt Teymur. Charles Oliveira swamps him. Teymur tries to go for a takedown. Oliveira clamps onto the anaconda, rolls him to the ground, and finishes the choke. This was a very, very impressive win by Charles Oliveira, especially against a tough opponent like David Teymur. Oliveira looked reborn at 155. I think this is a really good weight class for him. I could see him giving a lot of guys, a lot of these lightweights, some problems over the next year or so. I'm just looking at the rankings now. I think that Dan Hooker will be a good matchup. Francisco Trinaldo, or even James Vick or Gregor Gillespie. So it'll be interesting to see what the UFC does here. Alright, next up, we've got the 41-year-old Demian Maia up against Lyman Goods, another dude whose nickname is Cyborg. Not much to say about this one. Maia took no punches at all in this fight. Basically what happened was they both came out in open stance engagement. Lyman Goods was kind of afraid of the left straight of Maia, getting pushed onto the fence by the feints. And once he got there, Maia shot for a single leg, transitioned to a double leg, and took him down. scramble for position for a little bit on the ground before standing up and Maia securing a body lock. And this is where he did his little neat inside foot trip to back take. We've kind of seen this one before. I'm not too sure which fight it was, but definitely we've seen this before from Maia. So Maia took the back, looking to finish with a rear naked choke, and eventually gets it. This fight was kind of like a break for Demian Maia, having lost 3 on the trot, losing to 3 of the division's toughest wrestlers in Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington, and Tyron Woodley, who are stylistically very bad matchups for him. Actually, during the post-match interview, he did mention that he has 2 fights left on his contract. We'll be interested to see who the UFC matches him up against. The next fight, the King of Rio, Jose Aldo, versus the young rising star, Renato Moicano, in front of an all-Brazilian crowd. Jose Aldo, of course, is what many would consider to be the greatest featherweight of all time. Bouncing back from his recent loss to Max Holloway with a massive win over Jeremy Stephens that came by the way of beautiful body shot. Renato Moicano, on the other hand, was undefeated until his loss to Brian Ortega. Bouncing back from that, he defeated Kelvin Kattar, where he brutalized Kattar's legs in that entire fight, and most recently against Carp Swanson, where he won by a rear naked choke. Throughout this fight, I felt like Renato Moicano had the same game plan as Max Holloway did in their last 2 fights. Of course, Moicano has a similar build to Holloway, which is that long rangy frame. The game plan was to feint Aldo out because Aldo reacts very instinctively on the counter, by making Aldo react to every single feint, as well as real strikes. He would tire Aldo out towards the later ends of the second round and the third round. And Moicano was making this quite obvious. He was feinting with his rear shoulder and his rear hand, drawing Aldo forward, skipping back as soon as he comes forward, then comes back with a jab, or jabs in between his feints. And he actually drew out some really, really big reactions from Aldo towards the end of the first round. And yeah, that's the thing. Feints work really, really well against people who work exclusively on the counter by reaction. In essence, having the hand always on the trigger keeps the body tense, and tense bodies lead to fatigue. Round 2, more of the same, until Moicano got caught with the left hand on his way down after missing I think it was a skipping front knee. Aldo caught him on one foot as he landed, cracks him with the left. Moicano covers up and tries to circle to the left-hand side of Aldo, and Aldo catches him with another left hook. And that was the beginning of the end. Aldo follows up with a few body shots, a knee to the face, and then some right hands along the fence to finish off the fight. In retrospect, I think that was a bit of a mistake on Moicano's part. That flying knee, he feinted it before in the first round. But yeah, the downside is that if you do miss the knee, if you land short in front of your opponent has basically an opportunity to land some free shots on you, which was quite counterproductive of a conservative game plan that he showed throughout this fight. So yeah, the King of Rio is back. Although Aldo has been very open about his retirement talks, I think the fans wanted to see a match between Aldo and Brian Ortega before the end of the year. Now, on to the main event. Marlon Moraes versus Raphael Assuncao. This is the second time they've met. The first time, you'd remember it was a very close split decision to Raphael Assuncao. He edged that one out via 2 knockdowns. But Moraes, since then, he's been on a tear, running through top-level contenders, including John Dodson, Aljamain Sterling, and Jimmy Rivera. So yeah, this is more or less a number 1 contender fight, where the winner would challenge for the bantamweight title. These two guys bring different styles to the table. Marlon Moraes, obviously very good with his switch kick, very good movement, similar to that of Frankie Edgar. And Raphael Assuncao, best way to describe him is that He's not very flashy, and he likes to work on the counter, especially with intercepting counters, letting his opponents lead. Throughout this fight, Moraes was working his jabs and working his low kicks. And what he was doing was he was trying to set up for that left switch kick. And the way he sets it up, the way he usually throws it, is he'll switch it behind a jab. And it is a very, very fast switch kick, as Jimmy Rivera found out. And Assuncao was pushing forward with his pressure and trying to draw out Moraes and work on the counter. The knockdown came from a very quick overhand, and as Assuncao was falling, Moraes followed up with another overhand, which completely dropped Assuncao. Moraes follows him to the ground, delivers some ground and pound, and what I liked about it is that he didn't rush the finish. He purposefully gave space for Assuncao to turn into him, grabs a hold of an arming guillotine and pulls guard, which was a rather risky move, as an arming guillotine is usually it's a tricky one to get if your grip's not right. Really depends, but and also when you pulling guard, you're kind of losing the position. But full props to Moraes. He managed to turn it into a mounted arming guillotine to finish Raphael Assuncao inside the second round. Really, really impressive performance. That's the sort of performance you'd want before you earn a title shot. Something to put on your highlight reel, something to let the fans know that this guy is ready for the big show. Although not sure about his call out of TJ Dillashaw, though. That was that could be a bit of a hit and miss. Yeah, we'll see how TJ responds to that. And that's it. That concludes this week's podcast. I promise I'll try to release these fight recaps a bit earlier during the week next time. And for this weekend, we have UFC 234, which is the Australia event. Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. And in the co-main event, we have Israel Adesanya and the Spider Anderson Silva. And these are going to be very cracking fights. I'll be releasing some videos throughout this week for these fights. Look out for those. I know it's a bit late in the week, but I promise there'll be good ones. Like always, if you like the podcast, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more content, including videos and fight recaps, please subscribe and follow me on Instagram, MMA Degree. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.